Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating look behind the curtain. We're trying to answer this question. Why did you make that last decision?
Right. Whether it was, something huge, like a career move
Or just what you had for breakfast.
Yeah.
We tend to assume our choices are logical, calculated.
And that's exactly the assumption that, all this research we've looked at from behavioral economics, psychology, neuroscience, it just kind of demolishes it.
Yeah.
For decades, the theory was, humans as rational agents, always weighing the pros and cons perfectly.
Carefully considering everything.
But what the sources reveal is a very different picture. Your daily life. It's governed less by pure logic and more by, defaults. Things like biases, emotions, habits, even just the situation you're in.
So our mission today is to cut through that complexity. We want to give you the essential tools, really, to understand the hidden psychology that's driving your decisions. And to do that, we really have to start with the core framework. It comes from Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, the dual systems of thinking. Let's unpack this a bit.
Okay, so think of your brain not as one single computer, but maybe like two different operating systems running side by side.
Two systems.
You've got system one, that's your mental autopilot. It's fast, it's intuitive, it's automatic, and it's highly emotional.
The gut reaction.
Exactly. It's what makes you slam on the brakes in traffic or, instantly recognize a friend's face across the street super quick.
And then system two. That's the manual mode.
That's the manual mode. System two is slow, it's deliberate, it's analytical. This is the system you engage for complex stuff. Solving a tricky math problem, planning a detailed project, learning something new.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. We have this powerful analytical system two, but the research consistently shows we lean way too heavily on system one, the fast one, the efficient one, but also the one that's really prone to errors.
But hang on, isn't system one kind of necessary? I mean, we can't possibly analyze every single tiny decision all day long, can we? Where's the line between useful efficiency and, making mistakes?
That's a great point. It's all about conserving mental energy. Our brains are fundamentally lazy in a way. System one is an efficiency machine. It uses these mental shortcuts called heuristics. The problem is these shortcuts, while often useful, frequently lead us astray. And that results in what we call cognitive biases.
Jesus, right.
These are systematic, predictable errors in our thinking. We take the easy mental path, and sometimes we pay for it with poor decisions.
Okay, so let's get into some of those. The really powerful biases, the sort of internal flaws we need to watch out for. If system one is the autopilot, these biases are like its faulty navigation settings.
Right. Well, first up, probably the most famous one, confirmation bias.
Yes.
This is our brain's tendency to actively seek out and favor information that, confirms what we already believe, and we ignore stuff that challenges us.
So you end up only reading news that agrees with you, for example.
Exactly. You're not really looking for the objective truth. You're looking for validation. And system one loves that feeling of, see, I was right.
Okay. And then there's one that always shocks me. Anchoring bias.
Oh, anchoring is powerful. This is where we rely way too heavily on the very first piece of information we get, even if it's completely random or irrelevant.
The sources had some amazing examples of this, didn't they?
They really did. There's a classic study. Researchers asked people to estimate the percentage of African nations in the UN.
Okay.
But before they answered, they had them spin a wheel of fortune. Now, this wheel was rigged. It only landed on either 10 or 65.
Totally arbitrary number.
Completely arbitrary, no connection to the actual question. But guess what? The people who spun a 65 gave significantly higher estimates for the percentage of UN members than the people who spun a 10.
Wow.
That random number acted as an anchor, pulling their supposedly rational estimate way off course.
That just shows how that first number, that first impression, can completely frame everything that follows. Okay, what about the availability bias? This one feels very relevant today.
Oh, absolutely. Availability bias is when we overestimate the importance or the likelihood of things that are recent or easily recalled, things that are vivid in our memory.
So like if you see a lot of news coverage about plane crashes.
Exactly. You start to feel like flying is much riskier than it actually is, statistically speaking, even though car travel is far more dangerous day to day.
Right.
Your system one latches onto the dramatic, easily available story, the plane crash, rather than the boring statistical reality.
And underpinning a lot of these biases, especially when money is involved, there's this raw emotion, right? Specifically, loss aversion.
Oh, loss aversion is huge. It really shows how decisions aren't just mechanical calculations. The research is clear. The psychological pain of losing something feels roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something of equal value.
Twice as powerful. That's significant.
It really is. This fear of loss, it makes us overly cautious. It can stop us from taking sensible risks. It makes people, hold on to losing stocks way too long or stay in a job they dislike just to avoid the potential pain or uncertainty of change.
So it seems like the big challenge isn't getting rid of emotions. That's impossible, right? But maybe managing their influence. If things like stress or mood or even just being hungry can skew our judgment so much, how do we bring logic back in?
This is precisely where emotional intelligence comes in. It's absolutely critical. It's the ability to first recognize your feelings, understand them, and then manage them before you make a big decision.
So self-awareness.
Exactly. If you know you're feeling stressed or angry or even overly excited, that's the signal to maybe pause, delay the big decision. Don't let that temporary emotional state dictate a long-term choice. You need to create space to let System 2 catch up.
Okay, so that covers the internal landscape, the biases and emotions inside our heads. But what about the outside world? Our environment seems to constantly shape our choices too, doesn't it? This brings us to choice architecture.
Yes, choice architecture. This is fascinating. The core idea is that how choices are presented to you, the context, the framing, can be even more influential than the actual options themselves.
Architects being marketers, policymakers, designers.
Anyone who designs the environment in which we make decisions, they can nudge us towards certain behaviors, often without us even realizing it.
We all know the classic example, labeling yogurt as 90% fat-free versus 10% fat.
Right, same information, completely different feeling. The positive frame triggers that quick System 1 approval?
But let's look at a bigger example from the sources, the whole opt-in versus opt-out thing.
Yes, the organ donation or retirement savings examples. That's a perfect illustration of the power of defaults.
Explain that.
Well, in systems where you have to actively opt in, meaning you have to take an action, fill out a form to participate, like ticking a box for organ donation, participation rates are often quite low.
Right. People don't bother.
Exactly. Inertia is powerful. But in systems where participation is the default, where you're automatically enrolled unless you actively take steps to opt out.
Like automatically being enrolled in a company's 401k plan.
Precisely. In those opt-out systems, participation rates often soar, sometimes over 90%.
That difference is just staggering. It really proves that the default choice, the path of least resistance, is incredibly powerful. The structure matters more than individual motivation sometimes.
And that tendency to stick with the default gets even stronger when we're facing uncertainty. We humans, fundamentally, we just don't like not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah, uncertainty is uncomfortable.
Very. And that discomfort often pushes System 1 to grab onto the safe-seeming option, even if it's actually suboptimal, just to get rid of that feeling of ambiguity.
Which leads us right into this weird paradox of risk perception, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We tend to fixate on and fear these rare, sensational, headline-grabbing risks. You mentioned plane crashes or maybe like a shark attack.
Things that make the news.
Exactly. Things that are easily visualized and emotionally potent. But we often completely ignore or downplay much more common everyday risks.
Like the cumulative damage from a poor diet or not getting enough sleep.
Precisely. Or the risks of a sedentary lifestyle. System 1 struggles to grasp slow, cumulative risks. It prefers the dramatic, immediate threat. This raises a really important point. What do we do about this? How do we navigate risk better?
And the sources suggest the key is to think probabilistically.
Yes. The best decision makers, the sources argue, don't think in emotional absolutes of safe versus dangerous. They think in terms of likelihoods, probabilities. They try to quantify the risk.
So training your mind to look at the actual numbers, the statistics, even when your gut, your System 1, is screaming based on a vivid story or fear.
Exactly. It takes conscious effort to override that immediate emotional response and engage System 2's analytical abilities.
Okay, so that naturally leads us from just understanding these flaws to actually building a better decision toolkit. What are some concrete strategies the sources offer to help us engage System 2 more deliberately?
Right. So strategy 1 is perhaps the simplest, but maybe the hardest to implement consistently. Slow down.
Just pause.
Yes.
Yeah.
Create physical and mental space between the impulse to decide and the actual decision. If it's important, sleep on it. Step away. Write it down and look at it again tomorrow. Give System 2 time to actually boot up.
Makes sense. What's next?
Strategy 2 is the direct counterattack against confirmation bias. Seek diverse perspectives.
Actively look for disagreement.
Actively look for people who see the world differently, who will challenge your assumptions. If everyone in your meeting instantly agrees, that should actually be a red flag. You might be in an echo chamber.
How do you do that practically?
Well, one technique mentioned is deliberately assigning someone the role of devil's advocate. Their job is specifically to argue against the prevailing opinion.
Okay.
Even better, perhaps, is a technique called a pre-mortem.
A pre-mortem. That sounds ominous, but intriguing.
It's actually really clever. You gather your team before making a big decision, and you ask them to imagine it's, say, 6 months in the future, and the decision has already been made, and it failed. Utterly.
Okay.
Then everyone individually writes down all the reasons why it failed, what went wrong. This forces people to think critically about potential weaknesses and blind spots before you commit, rather than just getting swept up in initial enthusiasm. It really forces System 2 engagement.
I like that. A pre-mortem. Okay. And strategy 3.
Use data over intuition when possible, especially for big, infrequent, or novel decisions.
So trust the numbers more than your gut feeling.
In many high-stakes situations, yes. Intuition, that System 1 pattern recognition, is great for rapid decisions in stable, predictable environments where you have lots of past experience, like a firefighter knowing which way to turn in a burning building.
Right, based on years of experience.
But for a complex business strategy or a major financial investment where the context is new or uncertain, gut feelings can be dangerously misleading. Rely on the data, the analysis. Let System 2 do the heavy lifting.
So slowing down, seeking different views, using data, these are practical steps. But underlying all of them seems to be this idea of self-awareness.
Absolutely. It all hinges on developing metacognition.
Metacognition. Thinking about your thinking.
Exactly. It's like being the mechanic who understands how the decision-making engine works, including its quirks and potential failure points. When you understand how your brain can trick you the biases, the emotional pulls, you're in a much better position to compensate.
How do you practice that? Just pausing and asking yourself questions?
That's a great way to start. During a decision process, consciously pause and ask, what bias might be influencing me right now? Am I rushing because I feel stressed? Am I ignoring data that contradicts what I want to be true?
It's like building a mental checklist.
Precisely. Or even a physical one for really important decisions. It creates friction, forces you out of autopilot, and ensures System 2 gets a chance to weigh in.
And this connects to one last crucial point from the sources, especially about learning from mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not just about the outcome, is it?
No, that's key. It's vital to review the process of your past decisions, not just whether they turned out well or badly in the end.
Why the process?
Because sometimes you can have a really thoughtful, rigorous decision-making process, checking biases, gathering data, and still get unlucky. A bad outcome doesn't automatically mean the process was flawed.
Right. Chance plays a role.
Exactly. And conversely, sometimes a really sloppy, biased decision might accidentally lead to a good outcome through sheer luck. You shouldn't reward a bad process just because you got lucky. Focus on refining the process. If the process was sound, even a bad outcome is a learning opportunity. That's still progress.
That's a really powerful reframe. Okay, let's try to boil this down. What are the absolute core takeaways for everyone listening?
I'd say 3 things stand out. First, awareness. Just knowing about these biases is the first step to mitigating them. Awareness equals better input for your decisions.
Right.
Second, slow down. Consciously engaging System 2, giving yourself time to think, saves you from costly, impulsive errors.
Slow thinking saves you. Got it. And third,
balance emotion with reason. Recognize feelings, manage them, but don't let them hijack the process. Use emotional intelligence.
awareness, slow thinking, emotional balance. Okay.
And if you think about the bigger picture, leadership, business success, even personal growth, the sources suggest the most effective people aren't just naturally smarter. They build systems. They build routines and frameworks to deliberately activate System 2 and regulate their emotions.
They architect their own decision-making process.
Exactly. They don't just rely on raw talent. They use structured thinking.
Which brings us perfectly to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We've established you can't just eliminate biases. Perfection isn't the goal.
No, the goal is recognition and reduction, making fewer systematic errors over time.
So we challenge you to take this knowledge and actively apply it. Think about a significant decision you're facing this week, something that really warrants using System 2.
Maybe it's a work project, a financial choice, a conversation you need to have.
So our question for you is this. Which specific decision checklist or framework, based on what we talked about, maybe slowing down, maybe seeking diverse views, maybe doing a pre-mortem, which tool will you design and actually use for yourself this week to force your system into action for that specific choice?
Start building that personalized toolkit. Make these insights work for you.